when you call string functions like strlen, you might actually read past the null terminator, so past the length of the actual string. For example, here we have an implementation of strlen that reads 8 bytes at a time. This is usually how strlen would be implemented by your libc. So for the first iteration, it will load 8 bytes into or from memory. So it will load 8 characters. And okay, nothing seems funny here. Also, for the sake of simplicity, we'll just assume that the string is aligned. Otherwise, you need to do a normal byte loop until it is aligned. But for the second iteration, it will load another 8 bytes. However, we can see here that we have RLD and then a null terminator. And then we're actually loading some garbage value here. We're doing some overreading. Now, how is that even safe? So it seems that we are under the assumption that while this part is past the null terminator and contains garbage value, the chunk here is still allocated, and this part is used by others, maybe. In the same way, this sort of assumption is used in SIMD. Let's say we're trying to load some memory to a 64-byte vector, and here the length of the actual memory is lower than the length of the vector. We can first check if it's safe to load 64 bytes from memory by checking if we're crossing a page or not, which is visualized here. In this case, the 64 bytes we're trying to load do not cross the page boundary, and since the current page is allocated, then it's safe to load this chunk at a time, even though the string is smaller than 64 bytes. Otherwise, we need to memcopy and only copy the string, which is visualized here. So in this case, the 64 bytes we're trying to load crosses the page boundary, and since we don't know whether the next page is allocated or not, we cannot safely load 64 bytes at a time. So we need to memcopy the string. Then we do some computation, and since we're loading to the vector more memory than the actual string, we need to discard the garbage values. Usually the computation will result in a bit mask. You'll need to clear the bits that are not relevant. And in this case, we are actually not forced to do this. We can just do memcopy, since we know the length of the string, but in the case of strlen and other string functions, it will need to operate under this assumption if it wants to process more than 1 byte at a time.